Is Tom Brady really the greatest of all time? I mean, come on. Tom Brady's story is like something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. Picture this, a gangly 6th round draft pick who somehow transforms into the most decorated player in NFL history, with not 1, not 2, but 7 Super Bowl rings. But is that enough to label him as the greatest of all time? Take a look at this graph. This is a graph of the all-time leading pass touchdown scorers. At the bottom, barely making the cut, you've got Kirk Cousins with 265 passing touchdowns. A bit higher up, you hit the legends like Joe Montana and Johnny Unitas. Keep moving and you'll encounter current stars like Matthew Stafford and Russell Wilson. But cracking into the top 10, you've got Eli Manning with 366 passing touchdowns. 100 more than 20th all-time Kirk Cousins, might I add. And at number 5, you find Aaron Rodgers, who was eyeing Brett Favre's 508 touchdown record before an untimely injury. Just above Brett Favre, you find Peyton Manning with 539 passing touchdowns and Drew Brees with 571 passing touchdowns. But as you keep climbing, past 580, past 600, past 620, and past 640, at 649 passing touchdowns, you find Tom Brady. There's nearly 80 touchdowns ahead of the second all-time Drew Brees and almost double the tally of the 10th best passing scorer Eli Manning. Many would say that's impressive and to add it to the GOAT debate with his 7 Super Bowl rings. But what if I told you there's another stat that's even more impressive, making you ask, is Tom Brady really the greatest of all time? Imagine this, a small town kid with a heart as big as a football field. Jerry Rice was more than just a wide receiver. He was a game changer, a record breaker, and a touchdown-making machine. Jerry Rice's story is a tale of sheer dominance in the world of football. With a work ethic that can move mountains, he redefined what it meant to be a wide receiver. The man was a relentless force on the field, and his statistics, well, they're downright monumentous themselves. Let's talk numbers. 208 touchdowns, making him the undisputed king of all time in that category between all running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. 1,549 receptions, again, numero uno. And when it comes to receiving yards, he set the bar high yet again. Now here's the kicker. Those aren't just numbers, they're records that seem untouchable. This is a graph of the all-time receiving yard leaders. At the bottom, you've got Jason Witten, just scraping into the 13,000 yard club, a feat in itself, and he's only the 20th player ever to achieve it. Keep moving and you'll find the most recent retiree, Julio Jones, at number 16. Just above him is the evergreen James Lofton, who's been out of the game for 2 whole decades but still holds the 12th spot all time. At number 10, you've got the Colts legend Reggie Wayne setting the bar at over 14,000 yards. Now, look at this graph. What do you see? That's right, there are 11 players all within this 1,500-yard achievement range. Keep that in mind for later. As you venture on, you meet the Reverend Nick Bruce, sitting pretty at 5th all-time, now setting records in the 15,000s. But the legends don't stop there. You'll soon encounter the giants of the game, Randy Moss and Terrell Owens, all within 1,500 yards of one another yet again. But as you keep moving forward, there's a name that stands out among the rest. Larry Fitzgerald. He punches in nearly 17,500 yards, a remarkable achievement, surpassing T.O. by 1,558 yards alone, being the only person on the graph to break the 1,500-yard differential. Or is he? Because if you keep pushing onward, you'll finally reach Jerry Rice at a jaw-dropping 22,895 receiving yards. It's a number so astronomically greater than the others that it almost looks like a mistake. But let me assure you, it's not. Jerry Rice has separated himself from every other pass catcher of all time, and by a more considerable margin than even Tom Brady did as a pass thrower. But the man with hands doesn't only have records to his name. In terms of career longevity, Rice has played 20 seasons, which is more than any other wide receiver in NFL history. By comparison, Brady has played for 23 seasons as a quarterback. However, the wide receiver position is generally considered to be more physically demanding than the quarterback position, which makes Rice's longevity even more impressive. Now, you might be wondering, why am I not talking about Super Bowl rings? Well, guess what? I'm about to dive right into it, and it's a tale of 2 legends on the grandest stage of them all. Tom Brady is the undisputed GOAT of Super Bowls. He's got 7 rings, which as many of you know is more than any other franchise team in the history of the NFL. Not only that, he's been to the most Super Bowls as a single player, winning an impressive 7 out of the 10 he's played in. Jerry Rice, on the other hand, boasts 3 Super Bowl rings out of the 4 times he's attended the big game. But let's really break down these Super Bowl performances. Over Tom's 10 Super Bowl appearances, he's averaged 28 completions for 304 yards and 2 touchdowns per game. Now, that's not your run-of-the-mill achievement. That's an absolutely insane stat line, considering he's throwing against the other best team in the league every Super Bowl showdown. And then there's Jerry Rice, who, as a wide receiver, has left a unique mark on this Super Bowl stage. Over his 4 Super Bowl games, he's averaged 8 catches for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns per game. Let that sink in. Flash 80 has nearly half of Tom's total yards and matches his touchdowns per game as a wide receiver. It's the stuff of legends, and it's these incredible performances that keep us hooked on the debate. So when you ask, is Tom Brady really the greatest of all time? Just remember that Jerry Rice's remarkable journey is an essential part of the GOAT conversation. Anytime you hear someone mention the phrase greatest of all time, a powerhouse of a running back named Jim Brown comes to mind. His story is a testament to power and dominance on a football field. His incredible running style and the ability to break tackles were enough to give nightmares to defenders and make them question their career choices. While Jim Brown's career might have been relatively short, being only 9 seasons, the impact he made on the game still echoes through the stadiums. Jim Brown's influence on the game is felt even today, despite him hanging up his cleats quite some time ago. And when you delve into the world of running backs, his name continues to surface at the top. Brown had 2,359 carries for 12,312 yards, 262 catches for 2,499 yards, and scored 126 touchdowns in just 9 seasons. To put this in perspective, if he were to play a 15-year career as a running back like Emmitt Smith, then he would have finished with around 20,500 yards and 210 touchdowns. Meaning he would be first all-time in rushing yards and first all-time in touchdowns, beating Jerry Rice's 208 touchdown record, which you just found out took him 20 years to accomplish. Did I mention he could have done all of this while leading the league in rushing yards 8 out of the 9 seasons he played? No other running back in NFL history has led the league in rushing more than 4 times. Yeah, the man was a beast. Take a look at this graph. This is a graph of the all-time yards per carry leaders. With a couple honorable mentions, we have Delvin Cook and Austin Eckler at 4.6 yards per carry. If you keep on moving, you have Christian McCaffrey, O.J. Simpson, and Derrick Henry, all at 4.7 yards per carry. Meaning, if you give these 5 guys the rock 3 times in a row, they will give you a first down and change on average. The next guy breaks this rule as Jonathan Taylor averages 5 yards per carry, being the first on the graph to only need to touch the ball twice to get a first down. Right next to JT, you find Aaron Jones with 5.1 yards per carry. And now it is at this point where you find the GOAT of running backs, Jim Brown, at 5.2 yards per carry, making him 3rd all time. Underdogs, why are we talking about the 3rd best player in yards per carry right now? Well, I'll get to that in just a moment. As you keep going, you find another Browns player, Nick Chubb, who is leading the current NFL league in 5.3 yards per carry. As for the first all time, you run into Jamal Charles, leading with 5.4 yards per carry. Still, why are we focusing on Jim Brown when he has 2 players better than him in this category? Well, what if I told you they aren't better? You are focusing too much on the first half of the stat, the yards. You don't know about the second half in the carries. Jim Brown has 2,359 carries in his 9-year career. This comes out to about 262 carries a season or 20 carries a game. Jamal Charles played 1 more game than Jim Brown and only averaged 128 carries a season or 11.8 carries a game. Jim Brown had nearly double the total carries of Jamal Charles while playing 1 less game and performed at near equivalent efficiency. On the other hand, Nick Chubb averages 242 carries a season or 16.1 carries a game, showing that even the best running back in today's league doesn't have as many carries as Jim Brown did every season. So here are the percentages each of the running backs would have to increase their carry output to match the level of Jim Brown. So as you can see, Jamal Charles didn't nearly have as many carries. Also, could you imagine a world where the Browns run Nick Chubb another 24% than they already do? Well, that was Jim Brown with the Browns in the 1960s. As you look further back on the graph, you can see that all the players that have a semi-close workload to that of Jim Brown couldn't work at his efficiency. The only player who stands out is Jonathan Taylor, who's relatively close to the workload and still averages 5 yards per carry. Now, the only real question you should be asking is, can these current players match Jim Brown's absurd workload and remain as efficient as they are over their entire career? Jim Brown may stand out above his own position, but does he stand out above the greats like Jerry Rice and Tom Brady? Jim Brown earned 3 league MVPs and was chosen for the Pro Bowl every season he played. He may have had only 1 NFL championship to his name, but like I said, he had the potential to set even higher records than that of Jerry Rice. That is assuming Jim blessed the league and never retired with 9 seasons in 1965. Speaking of records and if current players can match the output of the greats, you might recall that all-time leading pass touchdown graph we discussed at the beginning. Well, I've added a fascinating twist to it. I've projected where current NFL players would be if they had a career as lengthy as Tom Brady's. First on the graph at 22nd all-time, you'll find Jalen Hurts with 337 passing touchdowns. And Eli Manning, he's not 10th anymore, he's now 20th all-time. But let's keep on going. You'll soon spot rising stars like Trevor Lawrence and Lamar Jackson making their marks on the graph. Zoom in a little closer and you'll see Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins surrounding Peyton Manning, the new 10th all-time. He was previously ranked 5th. Now in the top 10, it's a whole new ballgame, with names like Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers, who finally outpaced Brett Favre's record. But here's where things get really interesting: the era of the new greats. The likes of Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, who is now 5th all-time, and Russell Wilson, all chasing greatness. Yet, none of them could beat the astounding 649 touchdown record of Tom Brady, who himself now sits at the new 3rd all-time. Yes, I just said 3rd, because if you keep pushing onward, past 660, past 680, past 700, and past 720, you'll find Justin Herbert at number 2 with 721 passing touchdowns, and your new all-time leader Patrick Mahomes with 736 passing touchdowns, standing at a whopping 87 touchdowns ahead of Tom Brady. This begs the question: is Tom Brady really the greatest of all time? And if he is, for how long?